start off where we left off last week. We're at the tail end of the Surangama Sutra. Just a reminder, during the Sutra study, we invite anyone who has questions or comments to speak up. You can either ask questions in the chat or use the raise hand function on WebEx if you have something you want to say or ask.
Yes.
So, just a quick synopsis of where we are. The Buddha is currently explaining to the group what you might encounter in the process of the practice as we work to undo the 5 aggregates or the 5 skandhas. I have a cheat sheet for the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates are essentially, I like to think of them as the pieces that form a thought. So the first one here is form, which is just naming. It's also, he refers to it as rupa, which is the Sanskrit word for form. So it would be like, I always use the carpet for everything. So it'd be me saying, this is the carpet. Carpet formalizes because I'm calling it the carpet. The second one is feeling, which is a sensory contact. I see the carpet with my eyes, or maybe I feel it with my touch. It's all the 6 senses. And then the third one is perception, which is just, I see the carpet, form arises that it is a carpet. That's perception. It's just form and feeling together. And then the fourth one is mental fabrication, which is just anything that arises that's not currently within your realm of sense. So if I see the carpet, I call it a carpet and I go, that came from IKEA. The thinking that where it came from is mental fabrication because I can't, that's not within my field of sense. IKEA is not within my field of sense. And then,
does that mean also regardless if it's true or not?
Yeah.
So like, even if you know where this was purchased at, that doesn't mean it, that still means it's still a mental fabrication because you can't.
Right. Like it would only not be if like there was a tag on it that said IKEA.
Right in front of you.
Right in front of you within your field of sense, then that wouldn't be a mental fabrication. But because I don't see that, I can't perceive that. It's not within my range of sense. So it'd be like me assuming or imagining the rose outside the window.
Like we know it's there, but
yeah,
because we can't see it right now,
it's mental fabrication. Mm-hmm. Notice that like you can still sense things that you might not necessarily be able to see, like maybe we can hear the birds outside. That's still within your realm of sense. So it differs from, sense to sense. Whatever you're currently sensing or what's entering the sense gates is what they call it. The sense gates are just sense organs. That is anything beyond that field of sense is mental fabrication. And then number 5 is consciousness. Consciousness is just knowing or understanding. It would be what, like my previous experience with carpet that allows me to call this a carpet would be consciousness. Consciousness is also referred to as namana, and the Buddha refers to namana sometimes in the sutra. And then phenomena is what we use during our Supreme Bodhi meditation, which is just physical attributes. So physical attributes, phenomena, and then the knowing and understanding what objects are based on previous experiences is namana or consciousness. So like calling it a carpet, knowing it's a carpet because it's carpety would be consciousness. Calling it rectangular, brown, flat is phenomena, which is what we use to find that quiet mind during meditation. So with that, we are kind of in the middle of, which one are we in the middle of? We're in the middle of, I think we were on mental fabrication. What's it? Yeah, samskara. So continuing reading, keep in mind that these are experiences the Buddha describes that we might encounter as we work to overcome or destroy these 5 aggregates, 5 skandhas. But you won't necessarily experience them in your practice. So there are a lot of things that you can do to what he calls jump past and beyond these states he describes. But it is nice sometimes because if you're experiencing these things that he's talking about, if you can relate to them, it's helpful and reassuring to know what to do in that instance and still be on the path, like how to not veer from the path. And you know, we're trying to extinguish these 5 aggregates, not for a nihilistic sake, but because once you overcome or destroy the 5 aggregates, then you can see the world for what it really is. You can see what's called the Tathagata store, which is everything within the realm of sense without the taint of your perception. So I can see the carpet for the carpet without having to call it a carpet or perceive that it is a carpet. It just is there. And that, you know, of course, helps with things like triggers.
Yeah.
And it allows you to do like you talked about in your Dharma talk, which is you can control what your mind does instead of being dragged around by your own perceptions.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start reading now. Further, in his cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of his pointed concentration of mind, can no more be troubled by demons, and demons in this context, we know this from the work of others and masters and Buddhas, that demons are just our own thoughts. If the practitioner looks into the origin of living beings and begins to differentiate as he contemplates the 4th aggregate, which now manifests, whereas Rupa, Vedana, and Sanja have vanished. So Rupa's form, Vedana is feeling, Sanja is perception. He will fall into error because of the wrong dual view of existence and non-existence, which is self-contradictory and which implies the negation of both after death. Thus, Rupa, Vedana, and Sanjana, previously seen to exist, now do not. If samskara, which is mental fabrication, which now manifests, is likewise not to exist, it is not non-existent. So you can see stepping into duality. Once you say one and opposite is true, so it's the other. So if it exists, then it also has a non-existence.
Right.
So you're stepping back into the 5 aggregates by calling it something.
Good and bad. If it's good, there has to be a bad.
And that's kind of like your Dharma talk was with setting up this expectation to accomplish something and then having the disappointment that comes from the opposed, the dualistic viewpoint that is accomplishment.
Yeah.
If these 4 aggregates are likewise looked into, the conclusion is the 8-fold negative view of form in life and after death. Thus, each of them, when investigated, can be said to be neither existing nor non-existent after death. And birth and death in the sutras are essentially just anything that arises and anything that fades away. So you can apply it to literal birth and death, or you can apply it to thought arising and thought falling away. Further, since the 4th aggregate is changing, He reasons that both its existence and non-existence are invalid, for it is neither real nor unreal. So he infers that nothing can be said of it in the dark and obscure condition after death. For holding the above views, he will fall into heresy that screens his Bodhi nature. They pertain to the eighth state of discrimination, which postulates the invalidity of both the existence and non-existence of the five aggregates after death. And you can see why this is in mental fabrication, because, you know, troubling yourself with, is this going to happen after death? I mean, if you're talking about the death of a thought, it's kind of that cyclical thing where you're thinking about it, and so you're having those arisings again, you're having birth again. So the death, I mean, arguing whether or not it exists is kind of a moot point if you are in Supreme Bodhi. If you have that quiet mind, you're not thinking about existence versus non-existence. And this is kind of what the Buddha says in the in the Surangama Gatha with the real versus the unreal will just confuse you.
You're not you're just perpetuating. You're continuing
Yeah.
to perpetuate this cycle of birth and death, which in very real terms is the cycle of a rising of thought, diminishing of thought, rising of thought, diminishing of thought.
It's kind of like spiraling.
That's when you get into those rabbit holes of future thinking, of the, you know, manifesting things that aren't really happening. That's where all of that can start.
Yeah, it's good to want to get to the bottom of understanding things, but not to the detriment of your own practice. Keep it simple. Do you want to read?
Sure. Further, in his cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of his pointed concentration of mind, can no more be troubled by demons, if the practicer looks into the origin of living beings to differentiate as he contemplates the fourth aggregate, which is subject to annihilation after its rise and fall in every flash of thought, he will fall into error because of his wrong conception of either one of the seven states where body, desire, suffering, joy, and indifference are destroyed, and where nothing exists after their annihilation, which is final. For this wrong view of annihilation after death, he will fall into heresy, which screens his Bodhi nature. This is the ninth state of heterodox discrimination, which arises from the upset mind and which postulates the annihilation of the five aggregates after the present life. Let's see. Further, in his cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of his pointed concentration of mind, can be no more troubled by demons, if the practicer looks into the origin of living beings and begins to differentiate as he contemplates the fourth aggregate, which will reoccur after its annihilation, he will fall into error because of his misconception of the five false conditions of nirvana.
So a lot of these are like, you have an expectation. You have an expectation for what will happen after death. You have an expectation for what nirvana is going to be like. You have expectations, like you're kind of
It all sets you up.
backtracking.
You're setting yourself up, like I did this week.
Yeah.
But you set yourself up for, because they say, you know, it's natural to wonder about these topics, but when you set yourself up by saying it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that, well, what is that? What is this? What is that? You can precondition your mind to be susceptible to disappointment, to what have you, to being disturbed.
Yeah.
Simply because you're focusing so much energy on trying to figure this stuff out.
Now you're not practicing Buddhism anymore.
No, now you're
postulating. Well, and what's cool is that in the other sutra that we see frequently, what is it? Two sorts of thinking sutra. The Buddha says, he says, you know, there are productive and there's non-productive thought, and he goes through and he says, you know, ill will and hatred and non-ill will and renunciation and whatnot. And then he goes on to say, if a man, you know, thinks about renunciation, which is one of the positive, productive thinking, to the point where he gets physically exhausted, that is not skillful.
No.
So like there is a point in which when things start to harm you physically or mentally, that's unskillful.
Yeah.
And while we should push ourselves to apply the practice in our everyday lives, it's not about pushing ourselves beyond our limits. And so if you can postulate about these things without losing sight of the practice, that's great. But if you mistake these things for the practice, then now you're going into the heresy that the Buddha is talking about.
Exactly.
That's not practice. You want me to start?
Sure.
In his contemplation of the condition of perfect clearness, which now manifests, he is tempted to transmute into nirvana either the heaven of desire because of his delight in that condition, the first dhyana heaven because it is free from trouble and anxiety, the second dhyana heaven because it is free from suffering, the third dhyana heaven because it is full of joy, the fourth dhyana heaven which is free from both suffering and joy and is beyond birth and death in samsara. Thus he will mistake samsaric heavens for the wu-wei state and cling to these 5 states as an ultimate abode, offering peace and security. You can see he's misplacing the origin of the arising of his well-being on these states instead of on his own quiet mind or supreme Bodhi. Because of this differentiation, he will fall into heresy, which means he's not practicing anymore, which will screen his Bodhi nature. This is the 10th state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates 5 conditions of nirvana arising from the 5 aggregates. Ananda, these 10 kinds of wild interpretation of dhyana come from the intermingling of the 4th aggregate of discrimination with meditative mind. And then dhyana just means meditation. Just means one year.
Is that and it's so unclear. Jhana is different than the jhana states, or is it just a matter of spelling?
I am not sure if the words are interchangeable, but in the sutras, I've always seen it spelled jhana like this.
Okay.
It's the path of purification that spells it with like a J. I think they are the same word, but I haven't seen the word with the J spelling
That's good.
that I can remember in text that is supposed to be the words of the deluded and wayward practitioners who do not know their own capabilities cannot distinguish these states when they manifest, and wrongly declare that they have attained a holy rank. This is what reading this is good for, so that we don't fall into that. By so doing, they will break the rules against lying, and so fall into the unintermittent hells. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, we should proclaim this teaching, so that living beings will awaken to it, and the demons of their minds will not lead them to self-inflicted calamities, and that all practitioners can be on their guard and wipe out heterodox views. You should teach them how to discipline their bodies and minds so that they awaken to reality and avoid straying from the supreme path, and to refrain from wishful thinking and from escaping some little progress or complete realization. You should act as their guide to the supreme enlightenment.
A quick search shows that they are the same,
Okay.
just different spellings from different languages.
Because I know the jhana states you're talking about, the ones that are in the path of purification.
Yeah.
They are states that are supposed to arise as you begin your meditative effort. So
Yeah.
that would make sense.
So saying jhana states, as well as saying jhana states, could be considered saying the same thing as long as you're specifying it as such. Like,
The jhana states are a specific
yes,
set of.
meditative
They're not.
benchmarks or meditative, postmarks.
What is that? Byproducts of meditation.
Exactly. Jhana would be the Sanskrit word. Well, jhana is,
Really Pali, because path of purification is Pali.
Bali came up too.
Okay.
So it's just a different language, but they both mean the same thing if spoken about in the same context.
Thank you for clarifying that. Ananda, in the cultivation of samadhi, when the four aggregates of discrimination the fourth aggregate of discrimination comes to an end, the subtle disturbance in the state of clearness, which is the mechanism of birth and death, suddenly explodes and exposes an outlook completely different from that of the profound karma of Padgala. This is the moment when nirvana is about to dawn, like the cockcrow who heralds the first light of day in the east, when the six senses are void and still, and no more wander outside. Within and without, there is only a profound brightness reaching the root of life of all beings of the 12 forms of birth in the 10 directions of space, wherein there is nothing that can be further penetrated. So the 10 directions are, again, just everything within your realm of senses. This contemplation of the essence of basic clinging releases the practicer from all attraction and immunizes him from further transmigration in samsara. For he has realized the identity of mind with its self-created externals everywhere. As the nature of consciousness now manifests clearly, he will discover its hidden depth. This is the fifth aggregate of consciousness, which conditions the practitioner's meditation. As the practitioner is immune against external attractions and realizes the identity of mind and objects, the separateness arising from the 6 different sense organs ceases, and the mind functions uniformly with seeing and hearing in regard to a single function, which is pure and clean. And when you're talking about pure and clean, when you're talking about immune against external attractions, we're talking about seeing the detector store. We're talking about having sense contact without having the arising of form. In this state, all of the worlds in the 10 directions, together with his body and mind, are clear and transparent, like crystal, both within and without, because there is there's nothing in your mind interrupting or screening that with the perception. There's nothing screening the perception of objects. I'm looking at the carpet, but carpet's not arising. I can see it without anything arising in my own mind to not make it pure and clean. So the pure and cleanness is just being able to perceive things without your own interpretation getting in the way. In this state, all the worlds in the 10 directions, together with his body, I already read that part, and mind are clear and transparent like crystal, both within and without. This is the end of the aggregate of consciousness, which enables the practicer to leap over and beyond this kalpa of turbid life, the main cause of which is the seeming shadow of his wrong thinking. Did you want to read?
Ananda, you should know that as the practitioner looks exhaustively into the fourth aggregate, it will return to its source, that is consciousness. Though he wipes out birth and death, he does not yet achieve the pure and profound state of nirvana. He can now unify the different functions of the sense organs, and so is aware that all beings are created by consciousness. Thus, he can enter the source of perfection, but if, on his return to it, he wrongly sets it up as the cause of true permanence, and regards this as correct, he will fall into error and will become an adherent of the Kalpa doctrine, which postulates primordial darkness, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge.
So you can see, because he's calling it something. He's calling it a cause of true permanence.
And regards this as correct, it will basically set him up. Kalpa. Is that the same as Kalpa?
Don't think so.
Okay.
But essentially, all beings created by consciousness. It's not literal, like this is the creation of life. It's in your own mind.
No.
Because the Buddha also says, if you believe something is alive and sentient, then it is, because you believe it is. Thus, it becomes alive and conscious to your own mind.
Yeah. Okay.
So remember, all of this should be an inward reflection. I'm sorry, rereading.
This is the first state.
Yeah.
This is the first state of the aggregate of consciousness, which sets up the mind, thus realized as ultimate attainment, so straying far from complete enlightenment and standing opposite to nirvana, thus sowing the seed of heresy.
Ananda, as the practicer looks exhausted. Oh, sorry, did you have a question? Okay. As the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now becomes void, remember samskara is mental fabrication, he will wipe out birth and death, but will not yet achieve nirvana. If he regards consciousness as his substance and insists that he is right in thinking that all living beings of the 12 types of births in boundless space spring from his body, he will err because of his wrong conception of a subjective creator, and will become an adherent of Mahasvara, who appears in a body which has no limit. It will screen his Bodhi nature and will cause him to miss the Buddha knowledge. This is the second state of the aggregate of consciousness, which sets up the mind creator as ultimate attainment, thus straying far from complete enlightenment and standing opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of great pride in an omnipresent divine ego. I've seen people get stuck on that.
As the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now becomes void, he will wipe out birth and death, but not yet achieve nirvana. If he clings to consciousness as his refuge, he will interpret that his body and mind, as well as the whole of space, spring from that refuge, thereby wrongly inferring that this source is true reality, free from birth and death. Because of his misinterpretation of Vijnana as permanent, he will understand neither the uncreate nor birth and death. For his delight in this deluded state, he will fall into error because he mistakes impermanence for permanence, and will thus become an adherent of Isvaradeva, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. This is the third state of the aggregate of consciousness, which sets up the causal mind as ultimate attainment, thus straying far from complete enlightenment and standing opposite to nirvana, and so sowing the seed of perfection's opposite.
As the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which becomes void, he will wipe out birth and death, but will not yet achieve nirvana. If he clings to his knowledge of his all-embracing consciousness, and so sets up his own interpretation that all grass and plants are sentient and do not differ from men, and that after death men will become grass and plants. If he delights in such misconception, he will fall into error because of wrong knowing, and will become an adherent of the doctrine of Vasistha and Sani, thus screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. This is the fourth state of the aggregate of consciousness, which sets up the knowing mind as ultimate attainment, thus straying far from complete enlightenment and standing opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of inverted knowing.
Now that's a common practice that we see a lot of, where people will interpret that plants are no different than you or I or other living beings. I think that's interesting because this is written long, long ago.
Well, in a previous state, the Buddha does say, I think it was perception or something, feeling, it was a few weeks ago. He does say that there is a stage where you will become so compassionate, right? This is not to be confused with loving kindness or unconditional compassion, that you find it hard to do anything. You are cast into deep sorrow just at the thought of stepping outside.
I think it's because you finally realize, well, you can see all the suffering. You can see like everything from walking outside and stepping on moss or breaking tree branches by walking past them or bushes and whatnot. You're finally able to comprehend, like, holy crap, there's a lot of living stuff out here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all kind of suffering, and I'm causing it.
Mm-hmm. And this is where the like the 5 precepts, they really are a spectrum.
Yeah.
It's not I shall not harm living beings, like to the nth degree where we're not stepping outside. It's mostly about ignorance. Like if we observe that the sugar ants on our counter can feel frightened when something gets set down on the counter, they clean themselves after they get stuck in sugar.
No.
If we observe some of these indicators that they do have feelings, and we know that feelings come from thoughts, now that we know or can perceive that that's happening, if we see one in the sink and decide to just wash it down the drain, that would be going against our 5 precepts, because we are willfully ignoring our own understanding of their life. Now, if we accidentally do drown one, it's kind of the same. It's kind of completes itself, because one, we didn't know it was there, and we shouldn't put ourselves through the ringer, because ultimately that being has to go through its own life and experience its own life. And so to say that we should set out not to cause harm is good. And it's really set out not to cause harm knowingly. So the whole grass issue, there's this whole issue of like, we don't cut the grass, now we have ticks.
Yeah.
And now the ticks hurt other living beings. So you kind of have to, at some point, you have to say,
there's kind of a sense of stewardship that balances. It's
good to test yourself and to think about the grass and consider the grass before you cut it, and you know, and use it. It's mostly used as an exercise to better understand yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and that because we can only hope to know and understand our own minds, not others, not even other beings. So at the end of the day, it's all about your practice personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, as those things come up, it's best to work through them as they come up. Like last year, I had trouble with grass.
Yeah. Do we cut it? Do we not?
Do we cut it? Do we not? And then we have a lot of deer, so it's kind of our responsibility to keep it taken care of because of the ticks. And that's a real threat. Anyway.
Yeah.
Those are all things to think about.
It brings up, it cultivates a lot of these conversations, which I think can only be beneficial.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the outcome is, having the conversation, either with others, the Sangha, or internally, can only help.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I think we're on 5.
As the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now ends, he wipes out birth and death, but does not yet achieve nirvana. If he awakens to the uniformity of the sense organs, as he contemplates the original transformation, he may be tempted to worship the brightness of fire, the purity of water, freedom of wind, and creativeness of earth. He will regard them as fundamental causes of creation and as permanent reality, thereby falling into error because of his wrong view of creation. He will follow the teaching of Kasyapa and other Brahmins and will, in his quest of immortality, offer his body and mind to serve and worship fire and water, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. This is the 5th state of the aggregate of consciousness, which postulates the worship, thus throwing away the mind to pursue its objects and wrongly seeking the causes of fruition. He will thus stray far from complete enlightenment and stand opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of inverted transformation.
See, all of these are looking for more, looking for sensation.
Looking externally.
Like there's got to be more to the practice than just sit, find that quiet space, and stay there.
Yeah.
It's like you're still grasping at the idea that it should be more entertaining than it is.
Yeah.
That's why they call it super mundane.
Yeah.
It's mundane.
Name of the order.
Yeah.
The order of the super mundane.
Mhm.
Good.
Oh.
Yeah.
As the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now ends, he wipes out birth and death, but does not yet achieve nirvana. In this stage of bright and empty consciousness, he may be tempted to believe that voidness destroys all things and will cling to annihilation as his last refuge. He will fall into error because he clings to nothingness, and so will think that devas without thought are void, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. This is the 6th state of the aggregate of consciousness, which is completely void and mindless, leading to empty fruition. The practicer will stray far from complete enlightenment and will stand opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of annihilation. Now, clinging to nothingness, is this similar to nihilism?
Yeah.
Clinging to that
Well, see,
nothingness.
so a lot of people misconstrue Buddhist practice as nihilistic because nothing. All you hear is about nothing. But there is a subtle difference because in our practice, while one, to say that something is nothing is no longer the practice because now it's something.
Yeah.
And 2, we still have the discriminating nature, the discerning nature, that we can still choose to step into discernment. We still have our senses. We're not denying our senses. We're not denying, that we're sitting on cushions.
Yeah.
That the world is round. I mean, that's also mental fabrication, I guess, but
Not denying.
We're not
that people
denying.
have needs, animals have needs, or
it's not.
any of that.
It's not that it's null and void, and it's just that we can choose whether or not to have perception arise.
No.
And and it's kind of along the same lines, people that are overwhelmed by the idea of grass having consciousness, which is quite common. It's overwhelming.
Oh, sure.
They're not wrong. It's just beyond their skill level. And not to be, that's not meaning to be like holier than thou, I'm more skillful than you.
Yeah.
We all have our own skill level. We all have our own capacity for a lot of different things. But if you avert to the idea of grass having its own consciousness, essentially that's this annihilation. That's this, no, that can't be true. We're not even going to entertain the idea that grass has consciousness.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying it does or it doesn't. It's just having the open-mindedness to
Ask the question.
ask the question and investigate it, but not to the point where you exhaust yourself.
And that was the key from the beginning of this passage. The guy was exhausting himself to the point where he's hurting himself asking
Yeah.
these questions, and that's not the practice either.
And this is the jewel of Sangha. Because
Yes.
these are the times where if you're struggling with these states, if you're struggling with the grass having consciousness, that's what Sangha sharing is for.
Like, hey, I realized that plants are alive, and I was wondering should I even be cutting my grass?
Well, look at maybe this is good for my Sangha sharing, but you know, our plants have mites on them,
Yeah.
little white mites, and it's kind of like part of the practice to determine, you know, should I kill the mites or should I let the mites kill the plant? You know, and that's
Survival of the fittest, I don't know, right?
that's an individual thing
Yeah.
that needs to be worked out based on your own skill level. There is no right or wrong in that scenario, in my opinion. I mean, we're a part of nature just as much as the mites are, just as much as the plants are.
Right.
And so
This is where that exactly Sangha, having people who are able to have this kind of higher level discussion about beings and
not
the
avert to-
practice. Yeah, like I'm not going to ignore what I'm doing to the mites or try to justify it, because that can get dangerous too.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
7. As the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now ends, he wipes out birth and death, but does not yet achieve nirvana. In this continued state of consciousness, he may be tempted by its seeming permanence to try and make his own body deathless and free it from mortality. Such misconception will cause him to fall into error because of his wrong desire, and to follow the teaching of Asita Risi, who
Sita Risi.
postulates longevity, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. And there are accounts of Buddhist monks I think it's in Nepal, who will eat like tree bark and stuff to try to slow down the processes of their body so that they live longer. Or like that statue that was found to contain a still living monk sitting in meditation.
They like cast the statue around him.
Yeah. Whether he was alive or not is like a different story, but like,
there was a real guy in there.
that is not practice.
No, that's going into some weird stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, this is the 7th state of the aggregate of consciousness, which clings to lifelong and to long life and sets up the false cause of preservation in the search for permanent fruition. This practicer will thus stray far from complete enlightenment and will stand opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of false prolongation of life. Yeah, permanent fruition.
I mean, we can even see this in modern life where they're always selling products to try to make you live longer, be healthier, look younger. And while there's a couple things going on in that kind of mind, this idea of trying to extend your life.
It causes a lot of issues with tolerance.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly thinking, I feel good, I feel young, I'm going to feel this way forever, I hope I never stop feeling this way. Now when you're faced with the struggle of the body failing or an ailment, you're stuck with the thinking because you've encouraged that thinking that I feel good. So now you're going to be stuck with the thinking, I did feel good at one time.
Yeah.
And I feel bad, and it's going to make you feel worse.
Not only are you ill or injured, but now you're dealing with the thoughts of it.
Like comparing it to how you felt when you felt good, and it's only going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like some of these things they set up your future to struggle even more
Yeah.
with the things you allow to continue to exist in your mind.
And it kind of, I've noticed it's, what am I saying? It's like that athlete that's always clung to the fact that they can run fast, jump high, their body's in great shape, and they've dedicated their life to cultivating that, to reinforcing that mentality of my body, my physicality is everything. Once you lose it, you lose not just your body, you lose your identity, you lose your security, you're losing a lot more. Which to me is a fantastic example of putting your faith into something that's impermanent, because it's going to change, and not being able to skillfully handle that change.
I think the Buddha is one of the first people to say, exposure therapy, because he describes, if you have an attachment to the body, you should sit and you should work with thoughts of decay of the body. Because it's only by exposing ourselves to the things that are challenging that we can overcome them.
Yeah.
If we never have the chance to overcome them, they're just going to continue to fester.
Cute.
As the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now ends, he wipes out birth and death, but does not yet realize nirvana. In his contemplation of the aggregate of consciousness from which springs life, he may be apprehensive that its end will cause the total annihilation of the worldly. He will, by means of the power of transformation, sit in a lotus palace and exhibit the 7 treasures and beautiful girls to give rein to his mind. He will thus fall into error because of his indulgence in falsehood and will follow the heavenly demon, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. This is the eighth state of the aggregate of consciousness, which gives rise to the cause of worldly fruition. The practicer will thus stray far from complete enlightenment by standing opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of heavenly demons. So this very much strikes me as validation.
Yeah.
You want someone or something to tell you that you've done a good job, and then you indulge in that thinking that you've done a good job.
Now I can be okay because I was told I did a good job. I've struggled with that.
I think we all struggle with that, especially in work.
Yeah.
Further, as the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now ends, he wipes out birth and death, but does not yet achieve nirvana. As he contemplates his bright consciousness, if he begins to differentiate between its fine and coarse characteristics, thus implying the duality of reality and falsehood, in his search for the truth, he will stray from the pure and clean path. He will look into suffering, the cutting of its cause, its destruction, and the way thereto, and will stop at its annihilation without striving to advance further. That is the Four Noble Truths. looking into stuff. I understand my suffering. I see the origination of my suffering. I know that there is a path to cease my suffering. This is the path, and I cease my suffering. So if all of that, if you're only stopping at ceasing your suffering without striving to advance further,
striving to advance further.
by doing so, he will follow those whose minds are fixed on the Sravaka stage, those devas of the four dhyana heavens, and those who refuse to hear further about the Dharma, and so develop self-conceit, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. So it's like saying, I have nothing left to learn. This is it. This is all I need. You know? Which, that attitude is pretty rare.
That you stop at the ceasing of suffering part and never go on to learn or
So it'd be like the Four Noble Truths are like Buddhism 101. You know, the Eightfold Path. It's like you see it a lot in the traditional, you know, like Vietnamese, the Theravadian tradition, where they don't really open up the sutra with the Sangha. It's they do their service, they meditate, and then offerings are made to the altar, and then everybody leaves. They don't actually learn anything about what the Buddha teaches. Nobody explains the chanting.
they're not doing what we're doing as a group setting.
Yeah, it's this, like, all they need to do is go there, be present, understand the Four Noble Truths, make an offering, and leave.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Some people, that's just where they are.
Yeah.
There's nothing inherently wrong with any of these stages. It's just you have to understand that there is a certain point where if you stray from the path, you can't call yourself Buddhist. Don't associate yourself with the teachings of the Buddha if you're not following the teachings of the Buddha.
Yeah.
This is the ninth state of the aggregate of consciousness, which unites with its essence or nirvanic fruition. The practicer will thus stray far from complete enlightenment by standing opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of objective voidness. And
Obstructive.
thank you, obstructive. And honestly, clinging to anything is standing opposite to nirvana.
Yeah. It's supposed to be boundlessness.
Yeah.
Not I'm clinging to
Fullness. Not practicefulness.
Yes.
No, anything else. That's like what I like to say about mindfulness.
Yeah.
Mindfulness falls short of what the Buddha teaches because it only teaches you the arising of thought. It only teaches you, I am sitting. That's not mindfulness. That's
Well, it has its place. It has its place because if you're someone who's never encountered your thoughts, you know, you don't.
It's a good starting place.
Yeah.
But like you're saying here, like if you don't go any further,
then you're still going to end up in the cycle.
just kind of sit there and ferment, I guess.
Yeah, you'll still end up through that cycle of rebirth, and you're
Well, I mean, because really a pillar of this practice is understanding how to destroy thoughts that are unproductive.
Yeah.
And if all you know how to do is make thoughts arise, it's like going out into the wilderness with a stick and expecting to survive. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
it's like half the battle.
Yeah, so mindfulness is good for, this is a thought, I recognize that I'm having a thought, and our practice takes it to the fruition of that, which is, this is a thought diminishing, and this is how I might diminish it, and then this is the quiet space between thought arising and thought diminishing.
Because at that point, for well-being, you're always relying on getting another thought, a happier thought, a better thought.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can have a bad thought, but because that bad thought can never be diminished, it's still there, and you got to have a good thought to counter it.
You're not resolving the thought.
No,
You're just covering it up.
with another one, and another one, and another one, and another. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is not the practice. That's not, you're not able to let go.
Yeah.
10.
10.
Further, as the practicer looks exhaustively into samskara, which now ends, he is free from birth and death, but does not yet achieve nirvana. As he contemplates the bright and pure essence of consciousness, if he looks deeper into its depth, he may regard the latter as nirvana and will not strive to advance further. He will be one of those whose minds are set on pratyeka Buddhahood, and who live apart from others to seek self-enlightenment, thereby screening his Bodhi nature and missing the Buddha knowledge. This is the 10th state of the aggregate of consciousness is the union of mind with pure awareness culminating in clear fruition. The practicer will thus stray far away from complete enlightenment by standing opposite to nirvana, thereby sowing the seed of incomplete enlightenment. Ananda, these are the 10 states of dhyana leading to wild speculations, because the practicer relies on delusion and regards inadequate achievement as full realization. They are due to the intermingling of the 5th aggregate of consciousness with meditative mind, deluded and wayward people who do not know their own capabilities, rest their minds infatuated by former habits on these states, which now manifest and which they regard as their ultimate abodes. They will wrongly declare that they have realized supreme Bodhi and will thus break the rule against lying, thereby forming the evil karma of heretics and evil demons, which will send them down to the unintermittent hells. As to Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, they will not make further progress.
After my nirvana in the Dharma ending age, you should all proclaim this teaching so that living beings will awaken to it, that the demons of their false perception cannot cause them self-inflicted calamities, and that all practicers can be on their guard and wipe out heterodox views. You should teach them how to discipline their bodies and minds so that they achieve the Buddha knowledge by not going the wrong way from the start of their practice. This Dharma door was followed in past aeons, countless as the Ganges sands, by Tathagatas numberless as dust, who thereby opened their minds and won the supreme Tao. If the aggregate of consciousness comes to an end, all your sense organs will intermingle for uniform functioning, and you will enter the indestructible state of dry wisdom, in which your enlightened essence of mind will manifest like pure crystal with the precious moon within. You will then leap over the 10 stages of Bodhisattva faith, the 10 stages of each of a Bodhisattva's wisdom, activities and dedication, the 4 stages of intensified efforts, the 10 indestructible Bodhisattva positions, and the state of universal enlightenment to enter the Tathagata's majestic ocean of wonderful enlightenment, thus perfecting Bodhi to return to where nothing can be won. The above are very fine states of Mara discerned by past Buddhas while abiding in the condition of Vipassana when they practiced Samatha. If you know beforehand these Mara states, you will be able to rub off the dust of your mind and will avoid wrong views. The demons of the 5 aggregates will vanish. The heavenly demons will be crushed. The powerful ghosts and spirits will take fright and run away. The spirits of the rivers and hills will not come to trouble you until you achieve Bodhi. You will thus begin your practice from inferior states of mind and then progress towards great nirvana with a mind free from delusion and perplexities. I wonder what kind of time, but I wonder how many pages.
In the whole thing.
We're almost
We're at
done.
91%, 75%. Oh, yeah. So go down.
That's just I just can't see it.
We are
Part of it's glossary though.
1, 2.
Yeah, I think this stuff is sucked.
Yeah, we're almost there.
We have more to do next time.
Yeah.
So marked.
So we're getting close. And then Start again.